Hi, guys. Welcome to Spill the Beans. I'm here today with Jada.
Hey y'all. Hi
Um,
everybody.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. So, just tell me from the beginning a little bit about yourself and your story.
As you've introduced me, I'm Jada Moore. I am 26 years old and I have a 1 year old son and I'm married. A little background of what I went through. Me and my husband, we were trying on and off for I'd say about 2.5 years to get pregnant. And I was seeing a fertility specialist, and I was also diagnosed with something called PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I also became pre-diabetic being on there, which I was in the diabetic, or I'm not diabetic, but I was like in the range before being diabetic. So I was being seen for that, and then I, lo and behold, finally got pregnant March 2022. So as we went through getting blood tests done and everything to make sure that I actually was pregnant after 35 tests that I took, officially was pregnant. And so the whole pregnancy, honestly, I was high risk, but they were monitoring me for gestational diabetes. They were afraid that their pre-diabetes would turn into gestational diabetes. And honestly, my entire pregnancy was smooth for the most part up until I hit 30 weeks pregnant. Once I hit 30 weeks, that's where everything went downhill. It's a wild story.
So, whenever you say like it went downhill, what do you mean? Because I mean, honestly, you're one of the lucky ones to have such a, to be high risk and then have such an easy time up until the 30-week mark.
I appreciate that. um, it So what I mean by downhill, it was I went to an ultrasound, and typically they would check my blood pressure, and they would do like it's like a scan of the baby. I've gotten more ultrasounds than the average person because I was high risk, and so with them, they check my blood pressure afterwards, before the appointment and then after the appointment. And so my blood pressure was 165 over 100. So they were like, okay, we're going to send in testing. Now, mind you, this was my high risk doctor that I was seeing off post from Fort Campbell. And they told me that I would have to go and get preeclampsia testing done. So they had me do the whole 24-hour testing that they wanted me to send in, and they definitely diagnosed me with preeclampsia. So from there, it was just like everything just felt like it started going bad in my pregnancy. It was me getting pricked and me being tested and all types of stuff, and then also getting steroid shots for to develop my son's lungs. And it was a lot that occurred as far as everything after 30 weeks. So I was being monitored 3 times a week, 2 times on post, and then 2 times or 1 time off post. And then after that, um, that's when I got to 32 weeks, 5 days. And that's when it officially changed forever for me, my son, and my husband. So, as my husband was in the field, he had just gotten back. And as he had just gotten back from being in the field, he had to go to his job to clean weapons and stuff because gotta love the Army. And it was about 11 o'clock at night. And so I have asthma. And my asthma was kind of triggered because the weather kept changing. And, Tennessee, the weather kind of switches up. So it was triggering my asthma, and I'm already pregnant, and my son is sitting breech, so its head was like pushing against my lungs, so I could barely breathe. Like, I could barely go to the bathroom from my room. Like, that's how bad it was. So I had to call my husband, and he came in, or he got to come home, and take me to the ER. So I was in the ER from, I'd say, maybe 12 in the middle of the night up until 6 in the morning. And that was October 4th. And then I was going into October 5th. So October 5th came around. That was the day that I was supposed to schedule my induction date, because they already talked to me before about getting induced since I was preeclamptic. So I went in for my appointment maybe like an hour and a half after we finally got home from the ER. Went in for my appointment. They checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was very high. And so they were like, okay, we're going to check it again in 10 minutes. They came back, checked it in 10 minutes, checked it 10 minutes later. My blood pressure went from it was like in the 170s over 10, it was like 108. And then the second one was like it was like close to 180, over, I think it was 110. I can't fully remember, but I think it was over 110. So they were like, okay, we have to send you down to non-stress test, to monitor the baby, make sure that you're not having any contractions, and went from there. So they sent me there, and they gave me blood pressure medication as well. That did not help at all. So as they gave me the blood pressure medication, they were doing the non-stress test on my belly. And as they were doing that, I was having like very tiny contractions, but nothing that was like noticeable. So they were like, your blood pressure is still not going down, after they checked it again. And they sent me down to labor and delivery. Labor and delivery said, okay, we're going to monitor you down here, but we have to send you to Nashville because we don't have a NICU here. And now, mind you, I'm 32 weeks, 6 days. So I'm like, okay, why am I being sent to Nashville? They were telling me at first, okay, we're going to monitor you and make sure that that you're okay. And then when they come and get you, that you're going to stay there up until your induction date.
So, were you on post or were you off post when you were at the hospital? And they were like, oh, we don't have a NICU.
This was on post at Fort Campbell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to clarify that. I was on post when all of this occurred originally, and then they sent me off post because they don't have a NICU on post at Fort Campbell. So I went there. They got me, like they had like ambulance drivers come in and pick me up, so they had to take me all the way out there. And my oxygen levels were actually starting to drop as I was on my way there. They were kind of lower, but they weren't super terrible when I was on post, but it just gradually, my oxygen level started to gradually drop. And so they had to put me on an oxygen mask, and I was on an oxygen mask and got into the emergency room at TriStar Centennial, and that's in Nashville, which, by the way, whoop, whoop, love them. But they were monitoring me there, and not even 45 minutes of being there, they were like, we have to get this baby out ASAP because your oxygen levels are too low. So with that, they told me, okay, well, your preeclampsia and your asthma are, we think that it's feeding off of one another. So it's causing you to decline rapidly. So I'm over here shocked and in shock, and I have like 10, 12 doctors running in and out of the room. And my husband had to stand in a corner and call our family. He's like, they're like, Jada's having the baby today. And so he's like calm, but he's like freaking out, and you can tell that he was. And I was trying to actually wrap my mind around what was going on. And I was still like, I wasn't feeling good. I knew my body wasn't feeling that right or anything. I knew that something was wrong, but my blood pressure was still going high, and my oxygen levels were still very low, and they continued to decline. So they had to put me on this high oxygen mask, and then they also had to give me magnesium drip to help with everything. And they did a quick ultrasound on my belly, checked my son, and said he was fine. And I wanted to ask, or I believe I asked them, can I push him out? And they were like, no, your oxygen levels are way too low. And they were like, if I had you not come in or went into the hospital the night before, you could have died. Like, wow. You and your son could have died. And because your oxygen levels keep depleting and your blood pressure is way too high. So I was like, still in shock, and my husband's like talking to our family in the corner, telling my mom, telling his dad that I'm about to have the baby, and he's trying to like update them and everything. And so I had anesthesiology come in, and they gave me the spiel of a C-section. They were like, because your levels are way too low and they're not in a good area that they wanted it to be, I had to get an emergency C-section. So they got everything signed. They took my inhaler from my husband and carried it into the OR. We went down to the OR, and as we were there, there was like it was like so many different nurses and doctors. They were like prepping my husband, like putting on the gown and the hat and everything for him.
Right.
They were getting me prepared. I'm sorry.
No, I just said right, like, because I had a C-section too, so I totally, everything that you're saying, I'm like, yep.
You understand wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And it feels so overwhelming, you know, and it was very overwhelming for me, but I didn't fully feel like the emotions or anything until after I had my son. But it was a lot going on with them wheeling me in there, and they had to do they had a cardiologist come in and do a EKG on me, and they had to keep that on me. So I had a cardiologist on my left-hand side, hooking me up and everything. And then before she could do anything on my back, they gave me they told me to get prepared for the spinal. So I had a nurse that was like in front of me, and she was like, "Are you okay?" Like, you know, she was encouraging me. All of them were in there encouraging me, even the NICU nurses. And I'm still in shock. I don't really know what to say or anything. And so they asked my husband to step out. My husband stepped out for a moment, and they were getting ready to do my spinal. The nurse, she ended up saying, like, "Do you need to like grab me or like hold anything?" And I asked her, could I hug her? So she hugged me and was like comforting me. And even when it like kind of hurt putting the spinal in, she was still super sweet about it and encouraging me and, you know, stuff like that. So as they laid me back down, and the anesthesiologist was like, "Okay, it should kick in within 5 minutes." And the nurses and all the doctors were some of the nurses brought my husband back in. So my husband was at the top by my left shoulder, and he was holding my hand, and they were explaining everything that was going on or what they were going to do. And then they put the drape over me, and they started to do the surgery, which that in itself, I couldn't even fathom everything that was going on. They had to monitor, like they couldn't even put me under because my oxygen levels were so low and my blood pressure was too high. So I had to see everything awake. Or like at least hear everything, and, you know, be in the OR and see everything, being awake and everything. And I know some people do, and some people ask to be put to sleep. I didn't even have that option. They said that's not even an option for me because of how deadly my levels were. So I ended up having my son at 5:11 p.m. And he came out butt first. I remember the anesthesiologist, like after the NICU nurses took him and cleaned him up and everything, I didn't even cry because I was still in so much shock that everything was happening. And I felt bad afterwards that I didn't cry, but it was just like so much had occurred within the past 24 hours that I was like, I went from planning for my induction date to, oh, you could have died had you not come in, you know?
Yeah, so, like you were in shock.
Yeah, so everything was like I was in shock. So they took my son and everything to like clean him up in the other area, and they gave him some oxygen. The anesthesiologist asked the nurses if I could take a picture, like if we could take like a family picture together. So they took a picture of me, my husband, and my son. They laid him on my chest and everything, and he took a few pictures of us and everything, and then they had to take my son away because he had to be on oxygen. And when I had him, he was 3 pounds, 4.9 ounces. So he was very itty-bitty, like very itty-bitty. And so they took him to the NICU, and he was also on oxygen too, but he was on a CPAP, which is like it looks like an elephant trunk that they put in your nose. And so he had that for a couple of days, and Then they moved him to the smaller oxygen mask, and he had that for a few more days. And then he started showing improvement with breathing, and then he started weaning himself off of the oxygen. He was having a little bit of trouble gaining weight because he was only 3 pounds for 4.9 ounces. So he was struggling a bit to like gain the weight when he had his G tube. So or his NG tube. So they were trying to teach me like how to do, like how to latch after a while. But I was also not able to see him for a couple. Like they didn't want me to go down there for a couple of days.
I can't imagine what that must have been like because, after my C-section, they took my daughter for, it couldn't have been more than like 30, 45 minutes. But I was like freaking out. I was like, where is my baby? Like, I need to see my baby. I need my baby right now. So I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
It sucked so bad. And it sucked because the NICU was on one other side of the tower. There's like two towers in TriStar. And I was on the way other side in the ICU. And I was in the ICU for a few days so they could get my oxygen levels back up and make sure my blood pressure went back to normal, stuff like that. So they were telling me that I couldn't go down there, but luckily I had a really sweet ICU, like an ICU CCU nurse, and she came and she was like, hey, like, if you can stand up by the end of the night, I'll take you down to see your son. So she snuck me down. She snuck me down there, and she helped me see my son and everything. So that was like a highlight of me being there. And so it did suck. I cried so much. Not being able to have my son with me. And then also everything, like all my emotions just hit me right there when I was by myself. My husband was going back and forth between both towers to see me and my son. And although they had a camera on my son in the NICU to like for me to see him and everything, and like for us to see him when I got discharged, I still cried because I was like, I'm not able to actually go and hold him. I'm not able to touch him. I'm not even able to smell him. And some parents, they smell their babies, like, but that's just how I was. I was upset, and it sucked. But they were telling me, they were like, we have to get you better so you can be better for him. So
yeah,
the whole thing was very traumatic, and I did so much research on gestational diabetes, and I knew nothing about preeclampsia. And honestly, I will tell any mother that has never done research on preeclampsia, not to scare them or anything, but do your research on it, because it can kill you. It can kill you, and if you don't get it treated properly, or if you just put it off or anything like that. And I don't mean to sound morbid or anything, but it's the truth. I didn't know anything about that up until I got diagnosed with it, and I almost died, So that's essentially the spiel of it. I will say too, because I was in the hospital, I'd say a total of, I believe it was like, I think it was like a week, if I'm not mistaken. I was in the ICU for about like 3-4 days, and then I got sent to the high-risk postpartum floor, and then after that, they discharged me. And I got to go home once my levels were back to normal, and I was able to walk. I saw a physical therapist and everything to help me walk, and they discharged me. But I think to any mother out there who has been diagnosed with preeclampsia, to take it seriously. Take it very, very seriously, because even though I was diagnosed on the lower to mild side of it, like I was on the lower to mild side, and literally not even 2.5 weeks later, I'm giving birth to my son. So I'm glad that he's okay now. He is a very chunky 1-year-old now. He likes to eat food all the time and try to dive off of stuff. But you would never guess he was a premature baby at all, and you would have never guessed that we went through what we went through, honestly. But I do want to encourage moms too that even if you do have preeclampsia, like, you will be okay. Like, as long as you stay in contact with your doctors and you stay on top of, like, taking care of yourself during your pregnancy and everything after you've been diagnosed. And if you feel the slightest bit of a headache or anything like that, and you check your blood pressure or you go get it checked and everything, and it's a little high, please get monitored for it, because it can flip. Not to scare anybody, but it can flip in a heartbeat. Sometimes it doesn't, which I pray that it does not happen, but I want to raise awareness with that, because I didn't know that, and no one told me that at all. So I kind of blew it off. But I do want to, again, encourage everybody that even though, like, you go through tough situations, at the end of the day, it'll show you how strong you are. And I didn't realize how much strength that I had and my husband had and my son had up until we went through everything that we went through.
Yeah. And that is a really good message to send, because, you know, like, I had a C-section, and I had high blood pressure before I was pregnant. And it followed me throughout my pregnancy and just created so many issues. Like, first of all, my first trimester, I was extremely sick. I had to find a blood pressure medicine that actually worked for me, because the one that I was on wasn't safe for pregnancy. I was extremely sick. I worked for maybe a total of like 6 or 8 weeks my entire pregnancy, because it was so awful. And towards the end, it started just spiking out of nowhere. And they didn't diagnose me with preeclampsia because the medication was controlling it to some extent, but it was still spiking. It was still like, my doctor basically was like, I asked her one day when I went in for an appointment, I was like, so when do you think, like, I can expect my water to break or have this baby? And she was like, oh, we're not doing that. She was like, we're not even taking that risk. We're going to induce you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I basically got to, like, pick the date that my daughter came into the world. And then the next appointment, she was like, okay, we're not even gonna try to, if you want, like, we can try to let you have this baby vaginally, but we should probably do a C-section because of your blood pressure. Because you could get into a situation where you have to have an emergency C-section anyway, and, you know, then it's going to end up being a cesarean anyway. So, we just had a lot of complications, and it was, being pregnant, I was miserable, like, health-wise. Even now, like, I am still trying to get my blood pressure and my pulse, like, fixed. And my daughter is almost 6 months old. So, yeah, definitely, ladies, moms out there, take it seriously. And I will say, too, you know, we are very strong. We are very strong creatures, but when you feel like something is off, go to the hospital. Go.
Yes.
Like, please. Because there were so many times that I was like, my blood pressure, because I monitored it at home, and I was like, no, it's too high right now. I need to go to the hospital. And they kept me for observation, and it always went back down. But who's to say, like, you know, had I not went in, what could have happened? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And, yeah, it's just, birth can be, I'm one of those people, I think that you could have the smoothest birth ever, and I still think that it's traumatic, because you are giving life to something. And you housed a human for 9 months or less in your body, and that's a big deal, That's whether you give birth vaginally, whether you have a C-section, whatever. It's either process is traumatic to the body. And even now, like, I basically had to make the decision to have my tubes tied. So I can't have any more children. And that's something that I kind of had to grieve. But at the same time, like, I had to make that decision because of the complications that I dealt with when I was growing my daughter and giving birth to her. And so, I just want to say, listen to your body. Your body will tell you when something is wrong.
Yes, it will. It definitely will. It definitely will. And to hear you talk about, like, getting your tubes tied because of health complications with carrying your daughter, it's understandable because you don't want to go through what you went through before, and I know that, especially if you wanted more kids, like, I know, like, that grieving process was hard, but I commend you so much that you did what you felt was best, and I'm sorry that, you went through a tough pregnancy, like, throughout your entire pregnancy. I'm sorry that your pregnancy was kind of rough on you and rough on your health and everything. But I just want you to know that you are doing amazing. And I'm glad that you listened to your body when you did. Even if it was something minor, you still went in for observation and you made sure, or even just to be observated, like, just to make sure that everything is okay. So I do commend you for doing what you had to do and making that decision. I agree with, if your body is telling you something to go in. Literally that entire day, the 4th, I did not go in. That entire day, I held it off. I kept pushing it off. I was like, no, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. I'm good. No, I'm good. I'll take my inhaler. No, I'm good. I'll get on my nebulizer. I didn't listen to my body. And I wish that I did. I can't take it back now, but I wish that I did listen to my body when it was telling me, like, hey, something's wrong. Hey, something's wrong. It was just me being like, oh, like, I could overcome this. Like, I'm okay. Just laying down will fix it. But it didn't, So please, to reiterate what you said, please, 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 ladies, please listen to your body. As soon as you feel something is off, especially during pregnancy, if you feel the slightest thing off, I don't care how many times the doctors have to see you. If you have to keep going in, go in, just to make sure that you're okay. I'd rather y'all go in and get checked and everything to make sure that you're okay. And I know the doctors probably think the same thing too. They'd rather you come in and get checked a billion times if you have to, if it means to keep you guys safe,
Right. And thank you so much for saying that too. And for the record, like, you're doing great too. You did the right thing by going and getting checked out. Like, it's so crazy to talk about and hear these experiences, and to have experienced it myself, because before I became pregnant, before I became a mother, this is stuff that never crossed my mind. And that's why I think it's important to get something like this out there. Because, you could see a pregnant woman just out on the street and not even know what she's experiencing or how much she's going through. And so the next time you see a pregnant lady out and about, help her out, hold the door for her.
Yes.
Lend a smile, because it was tough. It was really tough.
Pregnancy, and you never know, like, what kind of pregnancy it might be for that person, or, even if their pregnancy is smooth, or even if their pregnancy is rough, you never know, like, like you just like you said earlier, that it's traumatizing, putting your body through so much for 9 months, and then 9 months or less, and then giving birth to that human being that you grew for so long, because it's like now you're having your body go through so many different changes, and I've seen women be mistreated, like as far as like even people on the street, when they're pregnant and everything, and I try to help pregnant women when I can, because I know that I don't know everything that they're going through, but I do know what it's like to be pregnant, and I know it can be rough on the body, and it can be exhausting, because it is very exhausting trying to grow a human being on top of trying to take care of your own body. So it's like I also reiterate what you're saying too, with helping someone out, like when you see them on the street, like if they drop something, maybe help them out pick it up, or if they are carrying a heavy load of like groceries, because I was big on that, carrying groceries in my arms knowing I'm getting like 50 things, and like getting a cart for them or something, or just doing something small, or even if you say like a little encouraging word to them or sentence to them, that can stretch a long way. So I agree with showing kindness to a pregnant woman on the street, because you never know what they're going through.
Yep, exactly, exactly. And the ramifications of having a child are so long lasting physically as well. Like, even now, I'm still having to lose baby weight. I'm still, I had to wait forever for my guts just to move back to their normal places. Like, it is, moms do a lot. Like, seriously, I have a newfound respect for mothers ever since becoming a mother myself.
Yes, yes.
And it's stuff that you wouldn't even think about, but it's like we are constantly busy. We are constantly doing things with somebody else in the back of our mind. We make a constant sacrifice every single day, and we knowingly and willingly do it too.
Exactly.
So,
I commend all mothers around. I commend every single last mother, and any mother that is listening to this. I commend you so much, and I give you all of your props, and I also encourage you to continue to do great, because it is not easy being a mother at all. And me being a first time mom, it's been a journey for sure, but it's like I agree with you. I have a newfound respect for mothers. Like, I respected mothers, of course, but like I didn't understand what they went through until I became one.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's like now that I'm in that position too, I'm like, I can understand why, some mothers, when they say they're exhausted, why they say they're exhausted, because it's like you're not only just mom, you're also a nurse, you are also a chef, you are also a teacher, you have all these different, like you're a caretaker, like you have all these different labels underneath your belt now that you are a mother, and it's all in one. So you're doing all these roles all in one, and we make that sacrifice every single day because we love our children and we want the best for our children. So I definitely shout out to all the moms out there, because y'all are doing great, and
Yes.
I'm proud of you. I am so proud of you. Even if you feel like you want to give up, or even when you feel like things are super gloom, or even when you feel like things are down, always know that you have a human being or human beings. You have little tiny little babies, or even toddlers, or even older kids. They love you, and they have such a big respect for you because of everything that you do for them, and they know that you are their safe space. And that's a really big thing that I had to learn too, is that my son looks to me as his safe space. So if he falls, he runs to me. If he wants something to eat, even, he runs to me, because he finds me as his safe space. And even when like I said before, even when you're feeling down, or if you're feeling like you just can't handle it anymore, do know that you do have that strength in you. Don't let your mind tell you anything otherwise at all, because you are doing great, and I am very proud of every single last one of you that is listening to this. And even if a mom is not listening to it, I'm still proud of you. You know, I'm very proud of you, because being a mother is not easy, but it is the most rewarding job. It might be the most exhausting job, but it's also the most rewarding at the end of the day.
It is. And, what you said about how your son looks to you as a safe space, I feel like my daughter looks to me as a safe space, but also I look to her as a safe space.
Yes.
Because I know that that is the one person on the face of the planet that loves me more than anything.
Yes.
And like when she's about to be 6 months old, but when she looks at me, I can see it in her eyes. Like I can see she's like, oh, that's my mom. Like that's like she recognizes who I am, and she smiles when she sees me, and just like her whole face lights up. And that one thing alone makes all of it worth it.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. There were days I wanted to give up, but even seeing my son, I'm trying not to cry, but even seeing my son, seeing him, and even if I walk into a room, he gets excited, or he just like starts to squeal, or he runs up to me and hugs me and stuff. And, it makes me feel good that I'm doing something right, even when I feel like I'm doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
He shows me that I'm doing everything right. My brain and, postpartum depression, because I also have postpartum depression, and I was diagnosed with that, and postpartum PTSD. And
oh, girl.
I was diagnosed with postpartum depression, postpartum PTSD, and postpartum anxiety. So it was like, even when the days that I only got like 20 minutes of sleep, I would still look to him, and he'll just be looking at me, and he looks at me with such admiration, and it made me feel good, because he's like, okay, well, I'm looking at you because I love you, and I know that you are my person. And so I'm like, well, you are my person too. You might not know it, but you are, so it is definitely rewarding. Even when I want to give up, it's definitely rewarding being a mother and seeing my child happy, and seeing him appreciate, like, you can tell that they appreciate you, when, even if it's just the little things of, oh, well, I got to change your diaper really quick. They see that you care so much about them, that you're doing everything for them,
Exactly.
And it just, this is making me kind of emotional, but...
No, me too, girl, me too. I'm over here, like, tearing up. I'm, like, thinking about how much, I love my daughter, and how I just couldn't, I do everything for her. I do everything with her in mind, and her future in mind. And, even now, I'm a huge true crime lover. And I get emotional. I get emotional when I see cases about kids now.
Yes, I can't handle it. I'm like, nope. And I'm a big crime junkie too. And I'm like, nope, I can't do it. Even in school, like if I had a case where we had to like do a case study or something like that as like practice during school, I can't do the ones with kids. I can't. Especially now that I'm a mom, I'm like, I just cannot handle it, because then I start crying and I get emotional, and then I'm like, now I have to go and hug my son and hold him for like 30 minutes, and he's trying to go run around and play, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, I just, I'm like, I can't handle it, like, I just,
Yes.
So I get it, girl, I get it.
Yeah, and it's like that with social media too, like, for some reason, I've been seeing a lot of sad videos about babies. Like, for example, I saw, this Facebook reel about this baby who was 4 months old that was taken off hospice, and I literally was just on the couch and started like bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, okay, girl, it's fine, it's just the hormones, like they're still leveling out now, like, but I had to grab my daughter and just hold her for a second, and just really cherish that that's not us. And I just get so emotional when I think about how grateful I am that she's even in my life, that I even have the privilege of being her mother.
Yes, especially being chosen in this time to be her mother, like it's like you appreciate it so much more once you look back and actually see, like, I was really chosen to be this child's mother.
Right.
And it's like you have that newfound gratefulness for that. Because that girl, I get it. I completely get it. I'm like 15 months postpartum, and I still look at my son to this day, and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I'm your mom. Yes, sometimes like it can be stressful, and I'm ready to be like, nope, let me go and hide her in a blanket for the rest of my life. But I'm like, it's a new, like I said, it's a new appreciation that you have for it. Um, just being able to be this little tiny human's person. It's like it's not only we're their mother, but we're also their friend. We're their we're their caregiver, or like we're little things. Like we're not little things, because they're actually big things, but we're different titles like for them, for us.
Yeah.
And the same way we look at them and we're like, okay, like I'm your mom, but I'm also like your teacher, and stuff like that. They look at us like, okay, this is the person that loves me. This is the person that cares for me. This is the person that wants to take care of me. This is the person that will do anything for me. Stuff like that. And girl, it's just
Yeah. Yep, I
girl.
totally get it. And when you were talking about postpartum too, like I had postpartum so bad. And I kind of had an idea that it might hit me, but towards the end of my pregnancy, I was like, nah, I'll be fine. And then when I got home from the hospital, girl, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I was like, nope, I'm gonna check out. And um, it took me a couple days before I was like, you know what? No, I need to get back on my meds, because when I got pregnant, I had stopped taking all of my medications
Mm-hmm.
cold turkey, because they weren't safe to take during pregnancy, and I didn't want to risk like losing the pregnancy or anything like that by tapering off of them. So I just stopped all of them, and so that was another reason that my pregnancy was so rough. But um, after I came home from the hospital, it just hit me so hard, and I was like, yeah, I need to get back on my meds like ASAP.
Girl. Ugh. It, I'm sorry that you went through having like with postpartum, because postpartum is no joke to begin with. It is no joke at all. And especially all the hormones that hit you once you go home, it's like no one prepares you for that at all. No one
No,
prepares you for that.
they don't. And I'm sorry that you went through it. I'm sorry that you had such a traumatic experience, and now, like, you have to deal with the ramifications of that. Like, I feel like, and this is just me, but I feel like people, and honestly men especially, they do not understand the toll that being a mother or being pregnant has on you.
Yes, it
Like,
takes such a toll.
mentally, physically, emotionally, like it. And shout out to my husband, because he was perfect throughout the entire thing. Like, kudos to him. He did such a great job. But
Woo-woo.
I know that other women like aren't as fortunate to have a partner that understands.
Yeah. It Like, honestly, it took my husband a little while to understand, like, fully everything that I was going through as far as postpartum wise. Because he didn't fully grasp, he didn't understand anything regarding, like, that. And with me barely being able to formulate how I'm feeling, because that was also a thing that I struggled with really bad with my postpartum, was not being able to formulate exactly how I'm feeling. I was just like, I'm just feeling like all these emotions and I don't know how to express them. And so for a while he didn't understand, but once I was able to actually, like, I was seeing a therapist, and once I was able to actually, like, formulate what I was dealing with and, like, formulate it in a sentence or, like, formulate it into words, he was like, okay, well, I understand now. I need you to, like, like, I needed you to, like, explain it to me so I can fully understand, because I know that you're going through a lot, but I don't know everything that you're dealing with mentally. And so, also shout out to your husband for being perfect throughout the entire thing. Because it's rough, like, and my husband, he didn't really know anything, and he didn't. It wasn't like he was harsh to me, because he wasn't. He was trying to understand, but I couldn't fully express to him, like, everything that I was dealing with. So it was hard for him to calculate in his mind, like, okay, what exactly is she trying to tell me? And with me going through everything that I went through, within the first, like, 4 months of my son being born, it was like trying to calculate all those emotions and everything. I just couldn't do it. I just kept crying, and I kept crying, and, like, he would be there for me, but he was still trying to, like when I would try to explain to him what he would ask me, he couldn't fully understand what I was trying to say. So he's like, okay, I don't get what you mean. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, he was trying to understand.
Yeah.
And also, I do want to say, too, to moms out there, too, if you're feeling like anything past the baby blues, which is only like 2 weeks after giving birth, I'd say they roughly say it's about like 2 weeks after giving birth. And if you start feeling like you're getting depressed or anything at all, please do not hesitate at all to see a therapist or to see someone, to talk to somebody, because I know it's a lot going on in that time frame with just having a baby, and your hormones are on a whole roller coaster trying to level themselves back out again, and you're also trying to heal, like, either from giving birth vaginally or giving birth, like, with a C-section or anything like that. You're going through so much, and you're going through you went through something traumatic, or and you don't know how to fully express it. And even if you do have a partner that is like, was there and could help you in every aspect, or even if you don't have one like that, please seek help. Like, I recommend it so much, because I regret waiting so long to go get help and to get diagnosed with the PTSD and the anxiety and the depression, postpartum. And I'm glad that I was able to go and get that help, just because it helped me realize a lot of things. It also helped me with having different outlets too, like journaling or writing down how I'm feeling if I can't express it verbally, stuff like that. So please, ladies, please, if you feel in the slightest bit that you're feeling, and I'm not saying that you have to, but it's really good to. If you are comfortable with talking to somebody, please talk to somebody, because you have to be a better version for yourself as well, not just for your kids or for your spouse if you have a spouse, and or for everybody else. You also have to be good for yourself as well. You have to be in a good space for yourself as well.
Right, because a happy mom is better than no mom.
Yes, and it makes me sad when I hear stories about moms who struggle with postpartum depression, and they try to get help, and there are some people who didn't want to help them when they were yelling out for help. Pretty much, there was a cry out for help, and it hurts my heart seeing that stuff, because especially going through postpartum depression and going through the postpartum anxiety and the PTSD, like, that stuff is no joke to play with at all. And I've seen on social media of mothers who have taken their own lives, or, I've even seen a case where a mother took her kids' lives. I don't mean to sound morbid, but she unalived them, and then she unalived herself, so it was sad because she was struggling with postpartum for so long, and nobody wanted to help her. So if you can, like, if there is somebody that can help you, please, please don't hesitate to go get help, because it can help you. And I know it might not make everything perfect right then and there, but it's a start somewhere. Because just like you said, Ginger, happy mom is better than no mom,
Exactly. And, and I second that too. Like, if you are feeling like something is going on upstairs at all, definitely reach out to somebody, tell your spouse, tell your doctor, your primary care doctor, tell literally anyone and everyone that you can. And I know that a lot of moms don't do that because it's embarrassing, like, here you are, this is supposed to be the happiest time of your life, you just gave birth to like a little human, and you should be feeling on top of the world, and it's like, why are you sad? Like, and I understand that. Like, I understand that embarrassment and the shame that comes along with that. But I promise you, there is a rainbow on the other side, and you're going to be just fine. You just need to reach out for help.
Yes, I agree. I 100% agree. It's, even if you have people who make you feel bad for wanting to reach out for help, don't listen to them at all. I know it's easier said than done, but please do not listen to them. If you feel as though that you need help, even if it's on the mild side, please talk to somebody. Please, just as you said too as well, like, talk to your spouse, or talk to your partner, or talk to a family member, or talk to somebody that you can trust, or just talk to somebody, because it's better to talk to somebody than to suffer in silence.
Exactly.
And I know that we as moms, we're like, okay, well, we're going to try to handle everything on our own. But if you're feeling like you cannot handle it on your own, please do not hesitate to ask for help from somebody that you can trust, and you know that they won't belittle you, or you know that they will actually help you, because I just want us to all be in a good space, always like, I just want us all to be in a good space, and I know that's not always going to happen, like, where we're always going to be in the best space in the world, but, it'll be good to have somebody that you can trust to express what you're dealing with. And even if you can't express it in the words, as I've done, I journal it, write out what you're feeling. Even if you just write down the emotions that you're feeling at that time, it could help. It could help. It could help releasing that, I'm not going to sit here and be like Elsa and be like, let it go. But, but, it definitely does help with, like, letting that out there, letting your emotions free, because even though we are parents and we have to hold in our, like, we try not to show our emotions too much to our kids, or like show it in front of them, do still know that you have your own private space where you can actually go and express those emotions. And if you don't, again, try to find somebody that you can trust that you can do that with, or again, you can journal or find different outlets, even if you Google it or YouTube it. I had to do that for a while, looking things up and trying to see if there was anything that could help me when I would get super stressed out or super sad, or if things were just so hard for me or rough or anything like that. I would Google stuff, or I would even look on YouTube and try to find, like, videos on, like, encouragement and everything else, because it's hard being a mother and trying to balance everything, as well as trying to know who you are in the process and trying to get back to who you are as a person, because we do get lost in motherhood too. We do get lost in motherhood, and it can be rough on the mental state. in an emotional state. So, I just want y'all to be okay. I know that sounds like cliche, but I genuinely do just want y'all to be okay. If you are struggling or anything like that, I just want y'all to be okay. And I know that it might not look like it is, or it will be terrible. It looks like it'll be terrible for a long time, but it won't. I promise. Coming from someone who went through almost dying and almost losing my son, not once but twice. I almost lost my son twice, and you know, going from dealing with so much trauma and everything, I thought that there was not going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but it has been. I see my son exceeding, even when they said that he was going to be a little bit delayed because he was born so early, but he is thriving. He's running around here. His first word was mama. Thanks, Miss Rachel. But
right, my baby loves Miss Rachel so much.
Girl, my son does too, and I'm glad that she helps us co-parent. She's our co-parent, but yeah. It's like her and Bluey co-parents. But even when I thought that things were not going to get better, it did. It took some time, but it did, and I thank God for my family and for my husband, because I struggled with coming out of that dark tunnel and in that dark space. I struggled for a while, and I finally got out of that dark space, and now I was like, my son's older, he's actually running around, he knows how to do different things, he's starting to articulate certain things, like he knows, like, oh, can daddy have it? Or like if he has something and I say, okay, go give it to daddy, he'll go to my husband. Or if I'm like, can I have it? He'll bring it over to me, stuff like that. Like my son is like exceeding in so many different areas that they were kind of like iffy about, I guess you could say. Or they were like, oh, well, it's going to be like, he's going to be like a little bit delayed, but not too much. But my son, he's exceeded in every aspect, and now he's like half the size as me, and I'm only 4'11", so I'm like, this dude is very long and tall, and it makes me happy knowing that I'm on that other side. I said all that to say that even when things are rough, it will get better. It will get better.
Yes, 100%. And thank you so much for coming on the show and just talking about your experiences, and I really appreciate your perspective. And guys, thank you so much for listening. If you have a submission, send it to spillthebeans, beans with a Z, .podcast1 @gmail.com. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.